Hello, and welcome to our show, Lead Me Home. My next guest gave me a Bible verse. I always ask for Bible verses, and I like this one, so I'll share it with you. It's from 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. I'm going to pull out verse 9 as well. It says, "The Spirit God has given us is no cowardly spirit, but rather one that makes us strong and wise." And another Bible said, besides strong and wise, it said, but rather of power, of love, and self-control. And as I looked at all those words, I thought, these are qualities and virtues that I definitely see in my next guest. As I moved on to verse 9, it said, "He saved us and called us to a holy life, not according to our works, but according to his own design." And this, like I said, I see in my next guest, and these are qualities, or we can call them virtues, that definitely she used, because she's not, like it said here, not a cowardly spirit. And so as we go through her testimony, look out for some of these virtues of wisdom, strength, love, self-control. I see them all in her. So let me introduce you now to my next guest, Dr. Dorla Rosado. Dorla, thanks for coming on board here today and coming to share your testimony.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, good. When we met, I wasn't sure if you would or not. I didn't know. That's to show you how God works.
Absolutely.
Really how God works. So for the sake of our viewers, I'd like to take you back, go back to the history, where you were born, parents, brothers, sisters, schools you went to, and of course, faith. Where was your faith at that time?
Okay. I was born here in Belize, Belize City, and my parents were Louis and Doreen Humphreys. My father, sadly, has passed away. He passed away last year, 2 years ago, March. My mom is still here with us, praise God, and she lives with me. And she's a very feisty, strong 98-year-old. And she'll kill me for saying that on television, but I'm proud of that.
Well, you see what you have to look forward to.
I know. I hope I have your genes.
Good. Okay, so schooling, is that kind of?
Schooling, I started out actually at St. Ignatius and spent a brief time at St. Catherine's Elementary. And then we left the country. When we returned briefly for visits, I would attend St. Catherine's Elementary, and later on, I did some time at St. Catherine's High School Academy.
But the reason you took very few time going to school here is because you were always traveling.
We were always traveling. My father was always assigned somewhere because my father worked with the United Nations, actually with the World Health Organization. He was a malaria eradication expert. So we went to live in foreign countries from I was 5 years old. And so every 2 years we would return for a little sojourn of 2 months, 3 months sometimes. But he always made sure that we were in school. So once we came back, it was school. Our holiday was school, and it's just being away from whatever country he was assigned to at the time. And while we were in these places, in Indonesia, for instance, his first assignment, we lived in Semarang, Indonesia, and we did a course called Calvary International Course, Calvary Correspondence Course, sorry. And it was homeschooling, and our teacher was an Australian gentleman who also lived in the town that we lived in. So we did that actually right up into high school.
Were other children at that time homeschooled around you?
Yes, we had some New Zealand neighbors, and they were also homeschooled. I think they did their own course from New Zealand, but they were also homeschooled.
Okay. So that was you, your whole family, all your brothers and sisters?
All of us were homeschooled, right, up until we left.
And that was quite a period of time, huh? You were there nearly
we were there, I think, going on 8 years, between 7 to 8 years.
Okay.
So technically for me, I grew up there. And I spent my childhood, was in my childhood there, right.
And you said it was fairly safe, huh? living in
Yeah,
that?
but at that time it was very safe and we ran wild. You know, we lived on a hill that was on a mountain. As I say hill because there were like 2 levels and we lived at the top. And there was a forest down below or a jungle down below us. And we used to run through that jungle barefooted, like, you know, with no fear. And my mother, for some reason, allowed us to just go.
Yeah.
And we had Indonesian neighbors, you know, young kids our ages. So we were very good friends with them. And, you know, we would play with them all through the jungle all day long. After once our classes were done, and we'd go play with them. And we had a little club that we called, I think it was called Queen Hilary's Club.
I love it. It was sort of the British influence, I suppose.
Right, because the New Zealanders, because the girl whose name was Hillary, we named it after her because she was older than we were and she was kind of bossy and she took over everything. So we named it after her. And our job was to climb all the trees in the jungle and rescue little birds that were being eaten by these big red ants.
Eaten by ants?
By ants. The ants would invade the nests and we would go looking for these nests, climb the tree, take them down, pick the ants off of them and try to save the little birds. I think we saved 1 or 2, but most of them died anyway. We didn't know what we were doing.
But still,
it was good.
Still, viewers are like it because later on we'll see the connection somewhere along the line. The generosity of heart, because you're trying hard to save these little birds. So it's only the birds. Were they not going for the eggs or what was it? No, they wanted the birds.
Just the little birds. We would hear the little birds, you know, chirping and crying or making songs, and we would climb the tree and just bring the entire nest down and run home with them, and then we would soak bread in milk and give it to them because we thought that's what they should eat. So that was one of our big missions.
Yeah, you probably killed more of them.
I tell you, I think we did.
You took them away from their mother.
From their mothers, yeah, I think we did.
But you know, still, it was something that you thought you were doing.
We thought we were doing something really good. We did.
Lovely. Okay, now you're gonna have to leave at some point. To leave Indonesia.
Yes, unfortunately, I think we would have stayed many more years. But Indonesia had civil unrest. And they started turning against foreigners who were working there, including employees of the United Nations. And I can remember them writing on the wall of our gate, you know, UN go home. And so they decided that, as far as I can remember, all foreigners who were there with businesses and organizations were evacuated. And I can remember that we left with suitcases and that was it. But my father's car was parked in the garage. Everything was left in the house. We just had to get on a plane and leave.
My goodness.
Yeah,
after all the fun time.
After all the fun time, exactly.
Had there.
Left our friends, you know, because that was home for us. We spoke the language fluently, and you know, as far that's the home that we knew. So it was difficult to leave. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, you come back to Belize?
We came back to Belize for a few months because my father had been reassigned. And this time he had been reassigned to Nicaragua.
Okay.
And we left from Belize, went back to, I think that was when we came and we spent a few months in St. Catharines.
Okay,
I did anyway. My older brother and sister, I don't remember where they were, but I know where I was. And we got reassigned to Nicaragua. We went there and then went to the American International School because most of these foreign countries, when you go there, at least in that time, there were these American International Schools because they established schools for their children and for the people who were there working with different UN organizations or US organizations. So we would go to these schools. So we did that in Nicaragua. And I think we were there for like 2 years. Of course, we learned to speak Spanish. We were pretty good.
So you left the Indonesian language behind.
Left the Indonesian language behind.
And now you're picking up.
And then we're picking up Spanish, yes. And I think when we left, we were pretty good, all of us. But then my father got an offer to be transferred to, I think it was either South America or Afghanistan. And we all got excited about Afghanistan. It just sounded so exotic and, you know, far away and everything. So we were old enough, so it became a family decision. So we said, oh, yes, Afghanistan, let's go there. So that's where we went. We went to Kabul, Afghanistan. Kandahar. My parents lived in Kandahar. But by the time we were in high school, myself and the other 2 older ones, and the high school was in Kabul.
Okay.
So we had to go to boarding school in Kabul while my parents lived in Kandahar.
How far away was it?
I think it was like 300 miles or something like that.
So they'd go home on the weekends?
No, we would go home only on holidays or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
But-
but
and
it was
what
an
was-
interesting experience.
Can you
I mean,
imagine Afghanistan? Look at it today.
I
and
know,
back then,
it's
and
incredible.
to-
It's incredible.
can you-
Incredible.
But a different terrain altogether now from both Indonesia and Nicaragua.
Very, very different. Because Indonesia was very free. It was a Muslim country also, but the approach was very different. You know, the freedom there was pretty much what we were used to. And I remembered from home, or when we would come home, you know, there wasn't that much of a difference. But Afghanistan was very different. Afghanistan is where the women wore in Afghanistan they call it the sadri. It's covered your face. The women were totally enclosed in these things. It had a little netting across the eyes that they could see from. And men had wives, 8 years old, 9 years old, you know, and they could have as many as they like. So it was culture shock.
Yeah, I could imagine.
It was culture shock. And
as well as climate, you said, huh?
yes, it was cold.
Desert?
It was very desert. In the
land?
summer, it was extremely hot and dry, and then in the winter, it was cold. And it snowed.
Oh, okay.
Where we lived, it snowed.
As well.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, you know, traveling was an awesome experience for all of us. It was
Sure.
an education in of itself.
Of itself.
You know, that's something you never forget. And it taught us to get along with people, of very diverse people. And something that we have always treasured, you know, and used, you know, in our lives. So it was a great experience. And so I've always been happy that we had, thankful that we had that opportunity.
Now let's go back a little. Your faith. Where is your faith? Your father, you said?
My father was Catholic. My mother was Anglican. And I remember she told us that when they wanted to get married, they were told that for them to be married, that she would have to raise the children Catholic.
As Catholic.
And she had to sign something, I remember she said, and she did. She said she had no problem with it. So all the children were christened and confirmed and so on, all of us.
Yeah, so you've got all baptized, all received communion.
All received communion, all of us raised Catholic. Right, exactly. But to be truthful, we were not really a church-going family. You know, even though we prayed, and my father was a man who taught us morals, taught us respect, and you know, expected certain levels of behavior from us and so on, and my mother likewise. But not to say, well, you must need to go to church, and these are the traditions, and these are so on and so on. We were not raised like that. But in my heart, I always was searching. I always believed that there was a God. My father believed that, and I did not question it.
Gosh, yeah.
You know, did not question it.
So did your mother.
And my mother also, yes, absolutely. You know, I didn't question it. So as I got older, you know, there was that yearning in my heart to have a relationship with this God that I'd always known about. You know, and that became a search for me. You know, and
okay, before we go there, because we are going to go there, you're going to come back now. He's going to be transferred once again after you leave there.
After we leave Afghanistan, he's transferred again, and he's transferred to the Sudan in Africa. But I do not go with them because I am at the time 19 years old, and I needed to go on. I was 18, and I needed to finish St. Catherine's. They put me into St. Catherine's to finish. My mother stayed behind. My father went ahead because he wanted myself to finish high school and my sister to finish sixth form. So that's what we did, and we stayed behind. And my sister got married somewhere in there. And then my mother left, and she left me with my sister. So I finished. When I finished high school at St. Catherine's, and I got accepted to university in Texas, in Incarnate Word University. So when I left to go to college, my parents were not here; they were in Africa.
So big sister.
My big sister put me on the plane and said, "Good luck."
And you didn't have any family over there?
No, nobody.
Straight to college.
Just went to a very strange place all by myself.
But by this time now, you're used to traveling.
I'm used to traveling, but it's still scary, you know, because you're going.
All the other times you've been with your parents.
Been with my family, exactly. Sure. You know, so this was a whole new experience, and this was a Catholic university, Incarnate Word University, and those are 4 of the best years of my life.
What are you going to study? What are you studying there?
I did a double major, a double bachelor's, psychology and sociology. And actually, I started out in nursing, and I did 1 year, and decided I loved sociology and psychology because I was dealing with people's thoughts and people's feelings, and somehow that attracted me. And I switched my majors and went into this. Of course, when I look back now, I'm there, if you know now, if you knew then what you know now, you would have stayed.
Stayed in nursing.
Stayed in nursing.
Well, instead of knowing their thoughts and their ideas, you're knowing the body.
And how to take care of them and so on. Yes, exactly.
Just different parts of the body,
right.
I suppose. Okay, you're going to have a friend, you've met a friend, a relationship, a long-distance relationship.
Right. When I was at university, I went to visit my parents in Africa, and I had to go through New York in order to get a visa. And I had a girlfriend who was living there, and she invited me to stay with her for the 3 days they said it would take for me to get this visa sorted out. And she had a brother.
There we go.
Tall, handsome guy. And we were attracted to each other. And so from that, I left and I passed back through, and we decided we would start to communicate. So we had a kind of a long distance relationship over my years at school. And that really happened I think last year. My last year in university. And as soon as I was finished, we got married. We came to Belize because he's a Belizean, and we were married at St. Joseph Church. And I returned back to New York with him. And within, I think, year and a half, 2 years, we had a child, my first son, Ian. And unfortunately, not too long after that, the marriage broke up.
Okay.
And didn't last. I guess I was too young, and there were lots of other variables there, that got in the way, and I came back home to my parents.
So by this time, your parents are back home again?
My parents are back home, correct, and so I returned to live with them, me and my baby.
Okay, let's stop there.
Okay, sure.
All right, so we're hearing her story, and we see, like I said, this is just the beginnings of her story, coming into a lot more. But again, those qualities and virtues, already the one we saw with the little bird, that's why I love that story, the little love and care of the little birds. But when we come back, we'll continue on Dorla's story.
There's a way of life where simplicity brings joy and humility leads to happiness, where we learn that less is more, and in giving, we receive. It's our refuge from chaos and light to guide us through darkness. It's a place where the broken receive healing and repentant hearts find mercy. Here, our days are set free from anxiety and addictions, and our nights rest with more peace. So, where is this hope, and who knows the way? Our hope rests in Jesus, and His church leads the way. If you're longing to fill an emptiness or seeking a way home, we invite you to experience the peace that only comes from God. We are Catholic. Welcome home.
Hello, we're back. And we'll continue on Dorla's story. She's back in Belize now. Her parents have moved back to Belize as well, so she's with her parents. But remember now, she's studied psychology and sociology. So let's see how she begins her career. Let's take us through that, Dorla.
Okay, so once I'm back, I get a job at the Belize Teachers College, teaching in the two areas that I got my degrees in, psychology and sociology. And I think I was there for approximately 10 years.
Okay.
And I found that I love teaching because I love dealing with people. I love working with the students that were there, especially the women. And so it became something that I became passionate about. And because of my background in counseling, my training in counseling, I became a volunteer counselor, and I would work with the women, helping them,
the students.
And at Teachers College, they're mature. Some are very young, but then some are also older than you. They're mature people who have come back to get their training.
Married
with children, families, and they come with all the problems,
Sure.
that we all have at some point in our lives, and they need someone to talk to and so on. So I became their volunteer counselor to help them to get through. And as I said, it became a passion of mine to work with women and to work with girls to help them to be all that they could be and help them, work their way through whatever issues they were having so they could succeed. Okay. And during that time, I met my second husband, Alvaro Rosado, and I think within a year we were married. And I think shortly after that, I think it was at that point that we left Belize because he was going to go and study, and I accompanied him. And I think it was his master's. We went twice, his master's and his PhD. And while I was away with him, while he was studying, I would work. And I joined this organization that trained me to be a counselor and increased my skills in that area and gave me even more, I could say, ammunition in a sense to work with women and deepen my passion even more because I worked with victims of rape and sexual abuse. Okay, so when I came back home, I came back armed with that.
Yes, you had all of that.
I had all of that, and I really felt empowered. I really felt driven to get into the community and to work with women. And I worked with Dorla Bowman at one point at an organization called WAVE, Women Against Violence. And for quite a while, it was a volunteer thing. But again, it's something that I really felt very passionate about. And we did quite a bit of work because she shared the same passion that I had. Yeah, so we were able to do quite a bit of work with women. And, as I said, it stayed with me. And I think at the time, Dorla Bowman was deputy mayor and wanted to help these women who'd always end up at the city council asking for help. So she got a group of community workers like myself together. We all had other jobs, but our community work came out of our passion for helping others. And tried to see how we could start a shelter. And we worked very hard. I can remember many 2-3s in the mornings, brainstorming, trying to see how we could get this done. And, thanks be to God, we were able to do it.
Which is the
Haven House.
Haven House.
And we named it Haven House.
I'm sure most of you have heard of that, the Haven House.
Yes.
That
takes in battered women who are victims, but women and their children.
Sure.
Okay, and Haven House, so it has been around for quite a while, and it has served many, many families, many women, and I was, as I said, I was otherwise employed. I was doing other things. During that,
this is volunteer.
This is volunteer.
Sure.
This is all volunteer.
Sure.
And I became the counselor also for Haven House. Okay, I think I was one of the vice presidents at one time, but also I offered my services as counselor.
So you fit that in along with your teaching at UB and counseling at UB as well.
Yeah.
Oh, you had a full day.
Yes,
yes.
You're younger and stronger and more energetic, so you're able to do all those things without thinking about it.
See, remember, viewers, I said those qualities I spoke about. It was like wisdom and strength that God gives you, and love and self-control. And I see them all in you. God didn't give you a weak spirit by any means. And that spirit, that's why I wanted that story about the little bird. See, you took other little birds under your wing.
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
but
I saw the connection too. And then in fact, I'm going to see it in your son too when you come to his side of his story. But taking others under your wings and trying to, your best way you could, to pick the ants off, these little birds that have been so broken, wings broken, everything, that some may even die. I mean, not die physically, but might die spiritually. With the type of abuse that some of these women have,
and their children
have gone through. Okay, but education-wise, you're going to move up as well?
Yes. During all that time, the UCB, the then University College of Belize, and all the other tertiary level institutions amalgamated and became UB, University of Belize, and a new position opened up, Director of Admissions and Student Affairs, and I was fortunate to be offered to get that position. My husband then also got a new position. He became vice president of admissions, vice president of finance and administration at UB. And so, things were happening, and this is where we were at that time. So.
But you're there. Okay, so both of you have gotten your PhDs by this time, huh?
No, I haven't gotten. I have not got my doctorate yet. But he, by that time he did. When he got that position, he had gotten his doctorate already.
Okay,
Correct.
let's go back now and your spirituality. So with all of this, because this is a lot of goodness in your heart, you're searching for something else as well. Tell us about your spirituality at this time.
As I said, I always believed in God. I don't think there was ever a place or space in my life when I did not believe. But I didn't have that relationship with him, and I was searching for that. And even though I had been exposed to Catholicism, and I went to a Catholic high school off and on, and I went to a Catholic university, taught by nuns and priests and some lay people, I still did not feel that connection. I wasn't taught about it. I don't remember ever saying the rosary or being exposed to the rosary or being exposed to the Bible during these times.
Those years.
Those years at these institutions. At St. Catherine's, I remember that we had to go to confession. That was part of being St. Catherine's.
And Mass.
And we would go, and I would go because I was told I had to go. And I remember I did not like confession. Because I could never remember, what did I do? Did I disobey mom and dad? And that was usually my thing. I disobeyed.
The same sin over and over again. We know that.
I didn't fully understand what it meant, because I remember, maybe it was my age. I just didn't understand what it was all about. And so as I got older, got into my late teens, my early 20s, I said, I want more. There has to be more somewhere. I really want to connect with God. I want to have that feeling of this person is real. And so I left the Catholic Church, and I started searching, and I became an evangelical for a number of years. But before that, I went to this church and that church, and
searching
in all the places that I could search, and would move on if I felt, no, this is not for me. It's not what I wanted. And, as I said, I became an evangelical, and I really loved it. I felt that beginning to feel that closeness. I felt that I was being taught and I was being shown, where it is that I wanted to be, where God was concerned. And, but yet I still felt that something was missing. And I wasn't quite sure what it was. And I kept saying, it's got to be you, you're just not focused. You don't understand. There's something that you need to, ask forgiveness for, or whatever. So I went through a lot of soul searching over the years. I know I made sure that my children went to church with me every Sunday. I tried to instill that with them. As they got older, they started to rebel.
like
all of them, yes. But from when they were from young until they're like 16, I tried to make sure that they went. My husband would go now and again. He wasn't consistent.
But he had a good Catholic mother.
But he had a very good Catholic mother, Miss Anita. She was a devout Catholic. She attended St. Martin's, and she was a member of the Legion of Mary. And I remember her so distinctly that her church was everything. Her God was everything. She firmly believed. And she was a very strong, independent lady. And I remember she passed away in her 80s. I think it was a heart attack. But right up to the end, she was, a valiant woman.
And a praying mother.
I
talked last week, viewers, you let my last show is we talk about praying people, the power of prayer, and you can bet she was
absolutely.
a praying mother for her son, for his wife, for the grandchildren, everything, that she was a strong person there.
She absolutely was.
In your life.
She absolutely
But
was.
what I want to bring out to you viewers, and it's for all of us as well. A lot of times you're talking about this searching, and you use the word feel and felt, always feelings. And you notice if you're deeper into your faith, we have to understand as Catholics, we can't always feel, This is why so many people leave our church, because they say exactly that. We're not feeling it. So we go to these other churches and they have these wonderful bands and preachers shouting at you, and you come out with this good feeling. Well, that feeling is we're looking for God. That's our search for Jesus, for God, for that one-on-one relationship of Jesus and me as friends, as buddies, as pals, as my brother, as God as my Father, a deeper relationship.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard because you can see a preacher, you can see a pastor, but sometimes you're not seeing Jesus. So then that's where we have to depend on our intellect, our faith that makes us understand that friend, that buddy, I call him a buddy, a pal, everything, he's right there, as close as we can imagine him, so close that he's part of us, our soul, our spirit, the image and likeness of God. We're made in his image and likeness.
Absolutely.
So many times we leave places because we didn't feel. And yours was a perfect example of that.
Yeah, because you tend to be looking for something outside of yourself, not realizing the Holy Spirit is right here with you. Within. It's always within. So you're missing it in that sense.
Okay, we're going to go on now and we're going to get started and then we'll come back to it. Dorla is going to have a major turning point in her life. Some of you know it already, but we'll ask her to share this turning point with your son. Huh?
Okay, Alvar and I had a son, and his name was Ariel, and a very energetic little risk taker, always running here and there and wanting to do everything. In his short life, he did so much, and we didn't realize it until afterwards, how much he had done with his life. So sometimes you feel like your spirit might know, how long they're going to be here. And when he was like 12 years old, he asked us for a Nintendo game for Christmas. I always remember that. And I said, I don't want him sitting in front of a television playing his game all day long, just, totally immersed in this thing. I want him to be out there developing his mind and, doing something else with himself. But I didn't want to just say, no, you can't have it, because I knew he'd be angry and he wouldn't understand. So my husband and I talked about it and we said, let's do a list. We'll ask him of some of the things that he might want, and we'll put the Nintendo in there somewhere with other things. And we put in a bike. We said, let's put a bike. He doesn't have a bike, let's put a bike. He wasn't too enthusiastic about the bike because he didn't know what he was going to do with it. But we did that. And when we went over the list, we said to him, if you like the bike, we could probably get somebody to go ride with you, so you don't have to ride just around our area. They'll take you out somewhere. And my husband had already been talking to an older gentleman, when I say older than Ariel, this is a grown man in his family, who was a cyclist. And he had said, well, get him a cycle, get him a bike, and I will take him out and we'll just ride with him and, so on. So we said, wow, that sounds great. So when we told Ariel, he kind of got excited about it, that he would be out there on a cycle, a real, not just a, little mountain bike, but a cycle, right? And riding. And we told him we'd buy you the, little outfit and you'll go riding. We never expected anything to come out of it.
And he's 12, 13?
He's like 12, 13 years old, correct. And so he decided that he would go with the bike. So we did pharmacologically got him the Nintendo, but because he had the bike, we thought there was a balance here. He wouldn't be sitting there all day just because that's all he had. And this is exactly how it worked out. He became and throughout the primary school, he tried football, he tried this, he tried that, all the sports. He was good at nothing.
Oh, really? I thought not the sports.
Not at those sports.
Okay.
Not at football, not at softball, none of those things he really excelled at. When he got on the bike, that was it. That was what he was made for, exactly. And he started riding, and by the time he was 14, he was racing with the big guys, because back at that time that he started, there were no juniors. There was no junior group. So they rode it with the older men. So he was doing that, and he did extremely well. He stayed with Tom. He was at Smilings and he was with Santino's, and he became one of Belize's best cyclists. He won every single race he ever rode, except cross country as a senior. He won it as a junior, but he had not won it as a senior yet.
Had he ridden in one?
Yes, he had. Yeah.
So that was his goal after.
That was basically just to try and get that.
Sure.
Right. Yes. So he and then of course during that time he graduated from high school and started UB. think he went to sixth form first, and then he went to finish his bachelor's at UB, and he decided that he wanted to study law. So we did what we could to try and make that, possible for him. But he was bright, his grades were always good, and he also had a heart for people. I can remember, it's going back a little bit, when he did his PSC, and he got a 99 point something, so he was up in the top 10% or something like that, so he got a scholarship. And he came to his father and I, and he said, I have a friend who did well, but his parents can't afford to send him. You can afford to send me.
Wow.
So can we help him? Do
you see where he got it from? From you? Can you imagine? He is asking his parents. He gets a scholarship, knows his parents can afford to send him, and wants to give his scholarship to someone else.
Right.
Yeah?
And,
so you see those qualities passed on to him as well.
Absolutely. And there were other instances like that. He had a friend who was, when he went to do his degree in law, he had a friend who was going to have to drop out because they needed a certain amount of money to complete, and he didn't have it. So he called his father and said, for me, could you lend him his mom, so that she can pay it? And we did.
Oh my! So there you go.
They did pay it back. But initially we said, okay, sure, we'll do that for him, and we did do that. And a young girl who was his relative who went to school with him, because he went to Grace Primary, also did well, but her parents were also struggling, and they didn't know how she was going to get into the high school that she was accepted into. So he came to us and said, can we help? And so we put that child through school. But this was what he wanted to do. And he and I talked about it. And he said, Mom, when I come back, he said, I'm going to go do corporate law. And when I come back, I want us to open this organization. It's going to be a nonprofit. And we're going to try and help people like this through this. We had a big idea what it is we wanted to do. And he said, and we're going to call the organization Small Axe. They say small axe falls big tree.
Small axe falls big tree.
But he was going to call it Small Axe, and we would fall big trees. And he even went ahead and got the cards made, the business cards. Even before we started anything, he said, Mom, just let's have faith. Just let's step out there. We're going to do this, and we're going to get the cards. I still have one of the cards. He said, and then, we said, let me finish. He said, and then we're going to do this. And then we're going to do this. So.
We have to stop here. She's leaving us here on a cliffhanger, I suppose we'll call it. And when we come back, but viewers, see her son. Where is he getting these qualities from? It's because he's watching a mother with those qualities of generosity, of strength, of wisdom, of love. He too has picked that up. So what a wonderful gift that you had passed on to him. We'll continue on Dorla's big turning point as soon as we come back.
Existe una forma de vida donde lo sencillo nos llena de alegría y la humildad de felicidad. Donde aprendemos que menos es más y que dando es como recibimos. Es nuestro refugio del caos y la luz en los momentos de oscuridad. Es el lugar en donde el que sufre encuentra consuelo y el arrepentido misericordia. Aquí nuestros días se liberan de la ansiedad y nuestras noches descansan en paz. Pero ¿dónde encontramos esta esperanza? ¿Quién conoce el camino? Nuestra esperanza se encuentra en Jesús y su iglesia guía el camino. Si estás buscando llenar ese vacío o buscando el camino a casa, te invitamos a experimentar la paz que solo proviene de Dios. Somos la Iglesia Católica. Bienvenido a casa.
Welcome back, viewers, and we'll continue on this story now. And as I pointed out before we went to our break, that Ariel had inherited a lot of Dorla's qualities, these strong, committed qualities of strength and wisdom and power and love and self-control. And I mean, to be a cyclist at that early age takes a lot of self-control. Early hours, true?
Early
Waking
hours.
up. Yeah.
3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, the rest of us, where are we? Fast asleep in bed.
It taught him discipline.
So yes, that's self-discipline. Self-discipline. Okay, we will continue now on her turning point and the continuation of her sad story.
Okay. So with Ariel, he went away and to pursue his law degree, and he returned from pursuing that. He had done his bachelor's and went back to Barbados and did his master's, and returned to Belize and was waiting to take an exam to be able to be called to the bar. And he continued to ride, not as much, but he did start back on the ride. He's riding. And I think it was 3 years after that return that he was out on a Saturday night, and he was at a friend in a French truck, which is an unusual thing because he didn't like to ride with anybody else. He preferred to drive his own vehicle. And he decided that day, for some reason, to leave his truck parked at home and go with this friend. And unexpectedly, really, my sister and my brother, a sister and a brother, were visiting, and they ended up visiting at the same time, which was, as we say, very coincidental, but there are no coincidences. But they were here at that time together, and they were visiting with my mom and my dad, who were then living with me in the lower flat of my house, and my father was not well, so that was something else that we were dealing with at the time. And Ariel, he was in his 20s, so you could say he was a grown man. He was still living with us, and I would call him all the time, very protective mom. He's the only one at home, the others were gone. And I would call him and say, how are you? What are you doing? Are you okay when you're coming home? And he would tolerate me, and he would say, it's okay, Mom, I'm here, I'm there, I'll be home at this hour. He never fussed, he never, got angry about it. He was very, very receptive about my, calling him.
Checking on him.
And the reason I'm saying this is because that night that he was out, it was like 9, and I said, I got home at 4 and I saw his truck parked on the road, on the street in front of the house, and I ran inside the house, feeling good because every time I saw him, I just felt happy that he was home, and I went opened the door and I got in and I said, Ariel, I'm walking through the house, Ariel. He didn't answer, and I said, he's not here. So I called downstairs and they said, he went out with his friend, Marlon. And I said, okay. And so around 9 o'clock, he wasn't there. My sister and my brother were downstairs visiting. And I said, let me call him and tell him to come and, be with his aunt and uncle and the family. So I called him and he said, Mom, I'm right over in Belama, and I'll be coming home soon. So I said, okay, you're close, and it's just a hop, skip, and a jump. And he didn't come, but I didn't say anything. I said, let me not call him again because he said he's coming. So about 9:45, my husband, who was upstairs, I just heard him shout my name with such horror that all of us jumped. And I said, oh my goodness, what happened? Because he just screamed my name. And I ran outside. I heard him coming down the steps, and I ran outside to meet him halfway. And I said, what happened? And he just looked at me and said, Ariel was in an accident and it doesn't look good. And I could not move. I could not move. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, come. And I ran back inside. By then, my whole family they were standing up because his voice was just
so loud.
And they said, what happened? And I told them, and they said, oh no. And everybody started to run out of the house. And I ran upstairs, and I just got by the door. And I remember my husband standing there, and he was looking in the mirror at himself, and he was very, very serious. And he was buttoning his shirt very slowly. And I'm there. What are you doing? Let's go. But he couldn't move, and I went and I grabbed him and I said, let's go.
May have to speak a little louder. We have competition with the noise down below.
And I said to him, let's go. Why are you, taking so long to button your shirt? Let's go. And then he turned and he just walked. He was moving very slowly, and I just wanted to run. I would have ran all the way to that hospital. And we jumped into his vehicle, and my sister and all the rest of the family jumped into other vehicles, and we took off down the road. And I'm asking him what happened on the way down. And he said that they decided to go back into town to go to another friend's house. he was at his best friend's house with the friend that was driving the vehicle. And they all decided to change their plans and go back down to this other friend's house. And he went with this friend, and his best friend went with another friend, so that their vehicle, I think, was in front of them. And they were going down, they passed Friendship, going towards the roundabout. And his best friend said that he looked in the rearview mirror and saw the truck coming very fast. I think he said they had to kind of squeeze over. And they were wondering, what is he doing? Why is he driving so fast? And when he went around the roundabout, apparently he lost control and slammed into that wall that is right there on the right-hand side. And the truck bounced all the way over across the median in front of the roundabout. And he called my husband and told him, the best friend. His name was Winston. He called him and told him, and he said to my husband, it doesn't look good. And so they were able to stop somebody who very graciously, took my son. And they said that the young man who was his friend got out of the vehicle and came running towards him. And he said to him, where's Ariel? Where's Ariel? And he said, in the truck. And when he went there, he found him lying. He was a passenger in the front lying, and they took him out and they took him to KHMH. And when we got there, they had him in the emergency. And I remember I just ran in there. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to collapse because my heart I felt like my heart stopped. And I was praying, I was saying, God, please, please, please. I kept saying, please, 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 don't take my son, don't take my son, don't take my son. And I ran into the emergency room, and all I saw was the bottom of his feet under the sheet, and the soles of his feet looked so yellow that I realized immediately to me that he had lost a lot of blood. And I just turned right back out. I could not go into the room. And my sister came and she was holding me. And I kept saying, is he breathing? Is he breathing? And she said, I don't know. They're trying to get him to breathe. And I went back into the room. And all I can remember seeing is that they had a tube in his mouth. And they were doing something I think they call ballooning. They tried to pump the heart to. I could not stay in the room. I could not stay in the room. And I went back out and I sat in the corridor. And my sister and my brother were there, and they were holding me, and they were just, they didn't say anything, they just held me.
Like you said, thank God they were here.
And that is why, yes, because when I look back now, and I will talk about that was as I said, the turning point for me on a spiritual level. Anyway, my son did not make it. And I remember not being able, my sister said, do you want to go and just see him? And I said yes, and she took me and we walked in, and as we walked in, I walked right back out again. I couldn't do it. And that is something I think about now, because I said I wish I could have sat there with him and just held his hand and talked to him and let his spirit know that I was there. But I was not. I was just in such shock.
Oh, no regrets.
In such shock. I could not.
Your spirit was there.
Yeah, I didn't know. My husband just took Mom and he said, let's go. There's nothing more we can do. And we left. And I got home, and I remember throwing myself on my bed and rolling from side to side screaming. And I said to God, where is my son? Where is my son? Over and over again, I was just screaming at God, where is my son? And I remember the doctor came and had to sedate me because I couldn't stop. I was asking God over and over, where is my son? Where is my son?
Oh, viewers, I think any of you out there who have lost a child in such a tragic way can relate to this story. The rest of us, we can empathize, but we do not even have the faintest idea of what she went through, or others. I know there are others. I had, not too long ago, I had Cressida Chan, who also lost her son to an accident. So, like I said, we can empathize, but we have until we walk in in the footsteps of what took place.
It's very difficult.
But life is going to move on. Life is going to move on.
It does.
And so it's not only that you're going through. But before I'm going to say, tell a little bit, because you're going through problems with your father at this time too.
My father, who was such a strong, outgoing, go-getter all his life, little boom boy who did so well for himself. became sick with Alzheimer's. And it was such a tragic thing to see what that did to him, to this strong man. And I was taking care of him. And so that in itself was
heavy.
It was very heavy.
Burden.
And I felt very much alone because I'm the only child that lives in Belize. The others are scattered elsewhere. And so the responsibility became mine. And so my mom was there too, but thank God, she was well. And so just my father we were focusing on. And my father had a fear of death. And he was going through a lot of things emotionally and spiritually. And he had hallucinations, part of the disease. But there were also other things that seemed to be going on that I could not understand, could not grasp. And at that time, this was after I had lost my son. His crucial time came some couple years after I had lost my son. So it was very difficult for me emotionally. I was going through a lot, And as I said, I had stopped going to church. The church that I was going to, I stopped. For
the evangelical church.
Right, for many reasons. And I felt very alone. I felt that there was no one there to help me. There was nobody to lean on. I am a counselor, but I had no counselor, and so on.
That must be so hard. So being a counselor and having.
So it was for me, it was very difficult, and so it went on for a few years with really, and I kept praying. I said, I never left God. I kept telling people who would say, but how come you're not? I said, I know that church is important. I said, but this is where I am right now, but I have not left God. I have not left him.
And he had never left you.
Right. And because when Ariel died, I was not bitter, but I did have questions.
Sure.
And I did ask him why, and I did say to him, where were you? And so these kids are, kind of connected
together.
And, that somehow, when I look back, just to go back to Ariel a little bit, when I looked at what happened, that if my brother and my sister were not there at the time, I don't know how we would have managed. I really don't. And when I look back, and these are the things that started to build my faith and started to make me stronger, I realized that God knew all along what was going to happen and that he prepared me. He is like the angels, giving their angels to guard over you, because my sister was invaluable. So was my brother. They took over everything. The law firm that Ariel was working at, they took over all the funeral arrangements, everything, and took good care of us. And, that when I look back and I saw the comfort and I saw there, and so many people came, so we were totally blown away. The house was full every day, all day long, with all the people who knew him, who loved him, and us, and they were there to support and to help and to so on. People came to talk to me. People who had lost children came to share, how they made it through and so on.
And a form of counseling
in a sense, correct, And my brother, who lived, the one that was there, lives in Santo Domingo. Okay. And he said, let me come with us and spend some time with us. And I didn't want to go and leave my husband. And he said, no. He said, you need to get out of this house. I am going to be okay. You go. So I did go with them. And I met a lady there, a very, very spiritual Filipina lady, who deeply a Baptist. She was actually a Baptist, and so deeply spiritual. And she, I think, is the one that really started to build me back, to help me, by having great conversations with her about God, and great conversations about, how to hold on, because I thought I was going to go crazy.
At that point.
I really did.
Okay, we're starting to wind down, so let's move forward just a little and tell us now how you're going to meet a friend going through all of this, everything you've gone through with Ariel, and now with your father, and all these disturbances that are taking place. Right. You're in a sad place. Of course, you went through depression. Right, yes. We all understand that. But you're in Brody's one day.
Right. I had a friend, I call him my Brody's friend, Mr. Roger Reyes, for many years, just going and say hi and talk and everything, and very, very nice, kind gentleman. And one day I walked in there, and remember correctly, I was feeling very, very depressed. I just felt like I had come to an end. I was coming to the end of my ability to hold on and to be strong. And he came up to me, and I think he said to me, are you okay? And my first thought was say, oh yes, but then no, that would not be right. I said, no, I'm not. And I said, I'm not okay. And he pulled me one side, and he started to talk to me, and I started just telling him how I was feeling. And, he spoke to me and trying to give me encouragement and shared some of his own experiences and so on. And then he said to me, Miss Dorla, he said, there's a chapel at Divine Mercy. And he said, go there. He said, I guarantee you that you are going to feel differently. And I remember leaving and thinking, that's it? Go to a chapel? And I don't even know the church. But it haunted me. I didn't go right away. 2 days, and it kept haunting me. I should go. And I was, as I said, I was at the verge of falling apart. And I called a very good friend of mine, and I said, look, you know this church, and I don't. I said, would you come with me, please? Because I feel like I should go. And she said, sure. So we came, and we went to the little room where...
This is a chapel. The chapel. At Divine Mercy Church.
At Divine Mercy Church. And we went in, and I remember she opened the door, and so that I could walk in before her. I think she just opened it and stepped back so that I could go in. And as I walked into that church, I walked into the chapel, I felt something just grabbed me. I felt like arms held me. It's like something just pushed me down, and I went right down. I remember going down on my knees, and I started to sob. Mm-hmm. And my friend took me and helped me onto a chair right by the door. And it was Creole called bawling. Uh-huh. I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And I think we were in there for like 2 hours. She prayed with me, and we talked, and she just was encouraging me. But we just basically sat there while I cried, and then we would pray.
But just for the sake of the interviewers, the monstrance was exposed.
It was exposed.
Okay, and when we say that in this chapel, for those who are listening, the Catholics understand, we have the monstrance with the host. The Eucharist is exposed. That means we're looking face to face with Jesus in the form of the communion or the host or the Eucharist. Right. We talk about that. See there, the Eucharist. Right. So, and that for us, that's Jesus.
Right.
So
and I knew nothing about that. I knew nothing. Uh-huh. But I knew what I felt when I walked in there. I felt that the room was full of love and compassion. I could feel it. I mean, it just totally covered me. And when I walked out of there, the depression was gone. The feeling that I had come to the end of my ability to cope was gone. And I remember I was going away in a few days, and previous to this, I had thought, I cannot get on that plane. They will have to carry me off because I will go crazy. I cannot get on the plane. But I went. I got on the plane and I went. And when I came back to Belize, I made sure that at least once a week, twice a week, I would go to the chapel. And every time I went to the chapel, it was not as intense, but I could still feel it. As I walked in, I felt the presence. I knew that something beautiful and warm and loving and compassionate was in that room, and, it just bring up the tears again. But this time it was tears of joy, tears of joy. And at the same time, through Mr. Reyes, I believe that Zoila started coming to my house to give my father Holy Communion, to pray with him. They would come and they would sing. She would bring others with her, and they showed him so much love and so much caring and so much compassion that I began to see him calm down. I began to see a change in him. And the other disturbances that I mentioned, they came and they prayed. Father Scott came to the house, gave him, I think it was the last rites.
Father David
and Father Scott both came, both prayed with him, gave him the last rites. And I think it was just 3 to 4 years. And for instance, Zoila was such a faithful servant. That rain, I think if it snowed, she would have come. But she was always there. Sometimes I worried about her because she would walk in the dark, and because right behind Brody's, but that little area can be dark, and she would come. Sometimes she would get a ride and she'd come. But very, very rarely, I think once or twice she missed, and it was beyond her control. But always there. And I said, whenever she came, my father looked forward to it. and every time they left something good in the house and with my dad. And towards the very end, I remember before he used to talk about seeing all these dark things and the fear that he had and so on. And then towards the end, I remember one other person that came in to pray for her, and I must mention her, is Maria Zabani. She had come, I didn't know her, she had come with Zoila a couple of times to pray with her. And one day, my father I just felt like he needed prayers because he seemed to be very depressed again, and at this point in time, and even though he had come to a place where he was more peaceful, he still seemed to be struggling with something. So just out of the blue, I would say, I called Maria and asked her if she would come and pray with him, and she said absolutely. She came, prayed, blessed the house for me, and after that, this was like night and day. Like he just needed that.
It's
and everything,
evil spirits.
Right, it was evil spirits.
Right.
And that just totally, everything became very quiet, very light.
Right,
my father, his countenance changed. He was happy. He was joking, even, what he could remember. And the next day after that happened, and I went downstairs to see him, my mom and I went into the room, he said, I went to heaven last night. And I said, you did, Dad? He said, yes. And it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. He said, some angels came for me.
Oh, wow.
He said, and they took me up. And he said that to us, I think, twice.
So that he was already leaving, going to where.
But I felt so good because he was seeing something different compared to what he was seeing before. And I realized that that through all of this that was being done for him, that his soul was in a good place. And I said, wow, it was love, it was commitment, it was consistency, it was faith, truly believing, and all of these things that were brought into the home and brought to him that helped him to be where he is, and I'm forever grateful for that, and that started my pivotal point, my new journey. I started, as you said, doing looking intellectually, trying to get that understanding, and not thinking so much about the feelings, but wanting
Even
that
though you
deep,
were getting
feelings,
too,
but
yes.
that depth of taking in and holding and understanding became something that started to grow in me, and I started again now searching, but in a different way, searching really for the truth, searching for what truly is and what truly matters. And I said, the love that I saw here is what truly matters. And the depth of the faith that was expressed to me, that was displayed. And no one ever said to me, because I told them from the beginning, I am not a practicing Catholic, this is what I've been doing. So I never took Holy Communion. It was always my dad. And no one ever said, well, you're wrong, you shouldn't be doing that.
Judging you
there was no judgment. They came willingly, every time. And so that made such a huge impression on me. That's when I started really, as I said, and my search in a different direction, and I started coming to church. I brought my dad with me, put him in the wheelchair, and we would bring him. My mom came with me too. And so we became regular until my dad could no longer come.
Okay.
Until he
so which we do have to wrap up with.
Yes.
We're gonna keep, this is gonna be a longer one, but just so interesting. I don't want to stop. But so we'll come back to we're gonna do the 2 poems at the end, because Dorla writes poetry as well, on top of everything else. Can you imagine this? But let's wrap up now, so that you today now your father has passed away.
My father has passed away.
Your mother has
my mother now is a Catholic. She became a Catholic. She was formerly Anglican, as I mentioned. She's now a Catholic through divine mercy. And I have a sister. Then in this, I was invited to join the Disciples of the Holy Spirit. And the thing is, I just have to mention that I had been praying for a long time for a group like this. I said, I want to be in a group of people who truly, truly love the Holy Spirit. And I feel like it's definitely an answer to my prayer, because that is how I feel. And so I'm a part of that group, and I now very much involved, I feel, becoming more involved with Divine Mercy. love. I have fallen in love now with Catholicism. I've fallen in love with the piety that I see, fallen in love with the reverence that I see, because I said, it's important because Christ is a king.
Yes.
And if with human kings you bow
You
before
give so
them,
much to them.
you give so much honor to them, how much more should we give it to Jesus? So that has become something that I truly treasure now.
Okay.
And I understand it.
Yes.
I understand
compared
it.
to the, yes.
So it's not just a matter of feeling, but it's
it.
an understanding that this is how it should be. This is right.
And this is what, even with our own Catholics, this is what we want for them too, to get that deeper understanding. Once the understanding comes, like you said, the feelings can come afterwards too. But once you get that faith, that belief, that knowledge, and it's not just going to suddenly appear. Believe me, you do have to do some research. You do have to have other people talking to you. In your case, showing you without even saying anything about it. Just showing it. And then to go deeper into it. There are books, there are shows, there's EWTN, where I get a lot of my knowledge from, to tell you the truth. So, but also, just a few more things. Not only that, your sister also.
Yes, I have a sister
States.
who lives in Florida, and I started talking to her. I started telling her all the experiences I had, with the church and the love that they had shown, the care, and so on. And she was very impressed and very happy, that we had that support. And then I told her that I had joined, become a part of the Disciples of the Holy Spirit, and told her about the group and what I'm getting from the group and so on. And she became just, wow, this is what I want. I've been looking for this too. I want this. So she now has come back to the Catholic Church.
She's converted.
And she has come back because she was always a Catholic, but she has just come back. And the first thing that she did, she has always, one of the things with her though, she always loved Mary, in spite of everything else. That she always used to tell me. I remember she always had a rosary hanging in her truck, in her vehicle. And the first thing that she did when she said, I am coming back with you, is she started a Marian garden.
A Marian garden.
In her backyard. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So that was her expression of, I have returned, So that's what she did. And also, when she heard about the group here, she wanted to know if we could start one there. I didn't think it was possible, but long story short, it was possible.
It did happen.
So now there is a chapter of the DHS in Miami, in Florida, actually, Miami itself. And she is hosting it. She hosts it at her house.
And your brother?
And my brother, who lives there, attends, and he is married to a young lady who is a Jewish, and now she wants to become a Catholic. She said she loves the same thing that I mentioned, the piety, that she's seen, the reverence, the depth of understanding of Jesus, and the honor to Mary. And she just loves all those things. And so now she wants to become a Catholic. And my sister's husband is Jewish, and he attends the meetings. I don't know where to go with him, so we're taking it easy slow with him. But he attends the meetings. And they both come from very traditional Jewish backgrounds. Okay. So that says a lot.
And way past, like I said, but just 2 minutes to the Ariel Rosado Foundation.
Oh, yes. Right. Out of what happened after the tragedy with my son is that my husband and I and some friends started a foundation called the Ariel Rosado Foundation. And this foundation, we offer scholarships to very needy children throughout the country. And at the moment, we have scholars in every district of this country. We have 45 students on scholarships, and to date we have given 120 scholarships.
120 scholarships. So remember I started about saying this was no cowardly spirit. God doesn't give us a cowardly spirit. Dorla, he did not give you a cowardly spirit, not by any means. And after hearing this story, it went on just a little past our time, but I think it was really worth it to hear about conversions. And look at that. Not only did Dorla come back, well, her father also came back. Right. Her mother came back. Her sister came back. Her brother and your brother's wife. So Dorla has, 6 of them from the family have come back, have been led back to the faith. Isn't this a beautiful and wonderful story? Before we're going to end off, and I usually ask for a prayer. And like I mentioned, Dorla writes poems, and she has 2 poems. One was to be read about the death of her son, and one about searching and finding her spirituality. So as our closing prayer, we're going to have Dorla read both of her poems, because I just need you to hear these poems. Would you go ahead, Dorla?
Okay, sure.
The first one is about with your son, huh?
The first one is called Still Standing.
Okay.
And it represents 2 phases in my faith. Not being bitter, but asking God questions. And I was angry. Where are you? That talks about that first part. And then the second part is really what I think of as a revelation from God, that eventually I was able to listen to him, and that he was there with me even before it happened.
Sure.
Okay, Still Standing. If only I had been told before you took back without warning the gift you had given, before this heart was torn and life became nothing more than a dark and deepening abyss, before all that I held as treasures became as meaningless dust, and the endless tears flowed, before I prayed with unspeakable sorrow, finding no hope in tomorrow, before I cried each day for your mercy, if only you had asked, I would have pled, please take me instead. If only I had been told these truths that would ease my journey, that through the endless agony, I would not be left to walk this road alone. For even before my heart would break, angels on earth and in the heavens, my wounded heart would gently carry, and every tear that fell would be counted, each tenderly wiped away with love, and that having endured this terrible thing with you, I would still be standing, if only I had been told.
Oh, but unfortunately, guys, viewers, God doesn't tell us.
I know.
No, if only you had been told. It wouldn't be the same. Would not have been the same. Thank you, viewers, for being here with us, for taking in Dorla's story. Dorla, this one is the second one. Okay, sorry. Okay, this is the one, of yours.
Of my
All right, let's listen to this one. It's so beautiful.
This is called The Search, and as I said, it's not so much searching for God, because I always believed in him, but for a deeper, more powerful and fulfilling relationship with him. And I think I was yearning for a love story with God.
Yeah.
You know, that binding.
I think that all of us want that,
right.
That love story. Right.
It's called The Search. I have poured out my heart to you. I have raised my voice in longing for help to move from fear to love. I have wept while searching deep within for peace and purpose. I have looked for you in the stillness of my mind and the openness of my heart. I have searched for a deeper truth in the wisdom and words of the Ancient of Days, found in the sacred places of this world. I have emptied myself to be filled by you and found the power of love renewed.
No words to express all of that. That says it all. Thank you once again, Dorla. Thank you for coming. I know you're a very private person, so to come on and to share this story is very, very powerful. I go back to that word, no cowardly spirit. God has not given you a cowardly spirit.
Thank you very
for
much.
being here,
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with the viewers. Viewers, thank you for taking this in. I'm sure you enjoyed the story, and not as a joy, but a learning experience as well, and how we can be knocked down so many times, but can always come back up with God's love, power, strength, mercy, everything that he has to offer. We thank also, of course, our cameraman, Louis, Mark. I thank Tom Peterson for his evangelicals that you'll see on this show. And thank you for Holy Spirit for being here in this room, taking in and being part of all we're doing here today. So once again, remember, God loves you. God bless you.